Today is another tabletop comparison, this time between the 1861 Navy and the 1860 Army. I'm Dustin and you're watching Guns of the West. The purpose of this video is to answer yet another viewer request. I had recently done a video on the 1861 Navy revolver, and he left a comment asking if I could do a comparison video, a tabletop comparison, between the 1861 Navy and the 1860 Army. So, as I usually do in these comparisons, I'm going to start at the back end of the guns and work my way forward, with one exception, and that is to talk about the caliber. That is the biggest difference between these two guns. The 1861 Navy is a 36 caliber revolver and the 1860 Army is a 44. But now let's come to the back. We'll start with the grips. This 1861 Navy has the shorter and, in my opinion, more stylish grip, just like the 1851 Navy, whereas the 1860 Army has a much taller grip. Now when I hold this, I can get all my fingers on the grip, including my pinky, very comfortably, and yet somehow I always tend to prefer the grip of the 1861 Navy. Well, we'll just call it the Navy grip because it's also the 1851 Navy. Even though my pinky almost wants to hang off a little, I just really like that, and I'm certainly not alone. Back in the 1800s, that was a very popular grip. In fact, in 1873, when Colt released the single-action Army revolver, sometimes referred to as the Peacemaker, it had Navy grips, even though it was called the single-action Army revolver. The grip frames on these, you'll notice this one is blued steel and this one is brass. Well, this one's blued steel on the back, but brass on the front, brass on the trigger guard. And typically, the 1861 Navy would have also been brass. This one, I'm told that the blued steel did exist on 1861 Navies, but typically it would have had a brass grip, including a brass backstrap, where this one did have a blued steel backstrap. Now, let's move up to the frames. The frames are actually the same frame. The only difference in the frame is that this one is cut a little bit right down here to accommodate this stepped up cylinder that holds the 44 caliber chambers. That wouldn't be able to fit onto the frame on the Arbor if that wasn't cut down just a little bit, as you can see right there where my thumbnail is. This one does not have that because the Navy cylinder is a straight wall, just like the 1851 Navy. They both do have the same engraving on them, just like the 1851 Navy did. This one has a longer forcing cone, just like the 1851 Navy. This one is shorter because it has a longer cylinder to make up for it. Now the hammers are actually the same. The barrels that you can see on the 61 Navy, Colt did go to a round barrel, just like the 1860 Army, whereas the 1851 Navy had the octagonal barrel. And I think this might be a better look, but gosh, I'm torn. I've said many times that the 1851 Navy, particularly the London model with blued steel down here, is probably, in my opinion, the most beautiful of the revolvers. But Samuel Colt said this one was, and probably because he changed the cosmetics of it, and just to match this one. The loading levers are the same. They both have that rack and pinion style, which I think operates a bit smoother than the old style that just hinges on a screw like the 1851 Navy had. And back to the barrels, let's look at length. This one is a 7.5-inch barrel, just like the 1851 Navy. This one is an 8-inch barrel. And when you look right up here at the end of the loading lever where the latch is, then you can really notice that there's a 1/2 inch more length here on the 1860 Army. Front sight is a blade on either gun. This one is the blued steel, this one is the brass, but both blades, as opposed to the bead front sights that Colt had on some earlier guns. Now, let me come back to something that I just realized I skipped. Back on the frames, you'll notice this has a shoulder stock screw and a shoulder stock cutout right here, as does the 61 Navy. Now, that was pretty standard on the 1860 Army, but on this, I'm not going to say they didn't exist, but that would have been more of a special order to have an 1861 Navy with that. So you can see, in some ways, these two guns are very, very similar, especially at first glance. And I'll tell you how similar. I was in a museum once here in Utah that was dedicated sort of to Porter Rockwell. and they had an original, very bad condition, but an original 1861 Navy on display, erroneously labeled as an 1860 Army. Whoever had labeled that did not know or just didn't notice. This one did not have that stepped up cylinder. It was a 36 caliber, and it had a little bit shorter barrel, so they had made the mistake and called that an 1860 Army. And at very first glance, I could see how you could do that, but it does again have its differences. Longer barrel on the Army, longer grip on the Army. More of them are going to be cut for shoulder stocks. So again, similarities and differences, but I really hope this answers some of the questions of what are the differences between the 1861 Navy and the 1860 Army, especially because I've had so many viewers tell me that these types of videos are helpful in making purchase decisions. Now please don't forget to click that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos. And if you look in the description, you'll see where to find me on social media, as well as where to find great Guns of the West products. Thank you so much for watching.